What is a BRRRR property? The purpose of a BRRRR is for us new investors and investors that want to explode quicker. Being able to utilize more bank leverage to get our cash back allows us to go buy more deals. That's the gunpowder we need, and it's going to help me grow as an investor. I'm James Dainard from the On the Market podcast, and today we're talking about how to utilize the right tools to analyze your next BRRRR investment property. So time to dig into analyzing your next BRRRR property. But before we do so, what is a BRRRR property? A BRRRR is when you buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. This is where investors are targeting value-add rental properties rather than your traditional. A traditional is going to be more something you're finding, you're putting 10 to 20% down, you have debt cost, your cash flow exceeds your debt cost, and you're making a return on your investment. It's a more traditional way of buying. A lot of investors like to do it because it's a lot simpler. They just want to get assets and they want to get cash flow. So the purpose of a BRRRR property is to utilize bank leverage to keep capital in your pocket. That's the gunpowder we need to grow as investors. When you purchase a BRRRR property, you have an initial cash outlay. Many times we're using construction financing where we're buying a property, we're putting 15 to 20% down, the lender's going to finance us back the construction costs, and then once we're done with the repair, the bank is then going to lever us at 75%. The purpose of a BRRRR strategy is for investors to keep access to the liquidity. Liquidity is the gunpowder for growing as investing. So for us, being able to utilize more bank leverage to get our cash back allows us to go buy more deals. So when we purchase these properties, we have an initial outlay. Typically, we're putting down 20% when we're buying these properties. Once we're done renovating them and refinancing them, the bank is then going to give us back our down payments, being under that 75% loan to value, which gives me more capital to go buy again. The more I can do this, the faster I can grow up my rental portfolio. The bigger my rental portfolio, the more equity I'm obtaining, the more cash flow I'm obtaining, and it's going to help me grow as an investor. So now let's dive into how do you analyze these properties. One of the best ways that you can use and the best tools you can do is to go to BiggerPockets, sign up for the Pro membership, and it's going to give you access to all their financial performance tools. You can get unlimited uses for the calculator by joining BiggerPockets Pro. Use the code word BRRRR, 4 R's, J, to get 20% off your Pro annual subscription and get a free digital copy of Real Estate by the Numbers by David Myers, so you always will be ready to calculate your next deal. Visit BiggerPockets.com/pro upgrade to claim yours now. You go to the website BiggerPockets.com, you click on Tools, and you come in and you hit the BRRRR Calculator. It's going to give you two options. One is to view your reports, property you've already underwritten and looked at, and one is to start a new report. So let's dive into this thing and see how it works. We're going to start a new property, and we're going to grab a property right now that we are looking at working. We source this property off market through our company Easy Button Leads. The seller wants to sell it immediately. It's a beat up old rental, needs a lot of work, and it looks like it could be a good potential flip property, but could also be a good potential property where we can buy it, renovate it, get all of our cash back out, and cash flow to the deal. So this is a good BRRRR property. When you're looking at analyzing properties, fix and flip versus BRRRR, what determines whether I'm going to flip a property or keep as a BRRRR is, will the debt cover the monthly mortgage cost? If I'm buying a value-add property, I fix it up, and my mortgage payment is higher than what I can collect on rent, typically if I have that much equity, I'm going to sell it, reinvest the money, and do it again. But on the properties that I can break even or cash flow, I want to consider keeping them. Remember, the key to real estate is hanging on to the properties, building wealth. Flipping is great for building cash, but if you can find a property that you can leave no money in, cash flow it, pick up an equity position to use later with a 1031 exchange or even leverage, it makes sense to keep it. All right, so now we're going to dig into how do you use that BRRRR calculator. We've already gone through all the underwriting, we figured out what it was worth, what the rehab it needed to be, so now we need to summarize, will this make financial sense or not? We may know all that information, but the calculation is going to tell us whether it's a buy for what we're trying to achieve. So as we get to the calculator, you put in your title. Typically, I just put in the address of the title because it keeps me organized. We then input all the property information, as far as location goes, put in the city, the zip code. Again, you guys putting in details into your reporting matters. It keeps you organized. It's going to allow you to keep revisiting deals. Now, once you put in your property information, then it starts asking you the financial numbers. The first one is the property taxes. How do you get that? You get that through the tax records or through your local real estate broker. So on this property, the annual taxes is $2,500 a year. That matters because divided out monthly is going to affect your cash flow. After you add the photo, you have a property sales description. These are my notes on the property. So like this is an off-market deal we got from Easy Button Leads. We want to put this in. So off-market deal through EBL, landlord wants to sell quick. Great, BRRRR. So just by having those notes, as I'm looking at properties, it reminds me of what it is. So once you put in your notes, you put in this information, we're going to start inputting the most important parts, the core metrics. We know that the seller's asking for $200,000. He was actually asking for $240,000, but we talked him down to $200,000. We then enter in the after repair value. Again, we pull comparables for the properties. We found 3 to 5 properties that were fixed up of like for like kind to give us that value. That's really important. We also reviewed all those properties, figured out what we needed to put into it to dictate our construction costs. After you input in the after repaired value, then you go into your purchase closing costs. Typically in Washington, it costs us about 1%, so that's gonna be about $2,000. You can expand that out because every market's different and break down the cost very granularly as well, where you're breaking it down by hazard insurance, property taxes, prepaid flood insurance. Anything that you want to granularly get into, you can list them out. In Washington, we just know it costs 2% roughly, so we're gonna put that in. The more granular you are, the more accurate your numbers are gonna be. So going through and inputting them line by line is always a good idea. After we've inputted in our purchase closing costs, we're then putting in our rehab costs. We have a cost of $85,000. How we got there is we reviewed the pictures, we utilized the BiggerPockets rehab calculator, and it told us it's going to be about $85,000 to renovate this property to get it to the value of the comps. So now we've inputted in the purchase price, the closing costs, our rehab cost, and what the value is going to start calculating these loan to values. The next thing that it asks for is what is your purchase loan details. On a BRRRR property, it's different than a traditional. A traditional property, typically you're getting a conventional lender, you're putting 20% down. It's one transaction for the first year. With a BRRRR property, these properties are under market value. Oftentimes they need a lot more renovation. They need a construction lender up front because a conventional lender doesn't want to finance it. So oftentimes you're doing a two-step loan, one with a hard money loan with a construction component, where the lender is going to have you bring in 10 to 20% down of the total project cost, your purchase price and rehab, and then they're going to finance you back your rehab money to repair the property. As you get the property more repaired, they're going to release you more money. This is perfect types of loans for the BRRRR properties. It allows you to come in with this 10 to 20% down and then leverage the fix up rather than putting the 10 to 20% down and coming out of pocket for the fix up. So how this calculator works is it calculates your down payment at 20% down, and then it's going to calculate your cash out of pocket for the $85,000 of repairs that we're going to put into. If you want to set it up more as a construction lender, which most of us do, what you can do is you can change the purchase price up here to the total amount on the property. So we're paying $200,000 plus $85,000. That's a total purchase price of about $285,000 on there. We then are going to delete our repair cost at $85,000 and then put our down payment of what the construction lender is requiring of 20% down. This is going to calculate you guys whether you're using a construction loan or not. So again, to back that up, if you're buying a property and funding the rehab out of your own pocket, you want to put in your purchase price and your rehab number separate, use the 20% down, it will calculate it that way. If you're using a construction loan where everything's rolling in, I suggest that you put your purchase price and your rehab number into your purchase price section, zero out the rehab, and it's going to calculate your hard money costs on your total loan balance that way. So typically, guys, I always use construction lender. It's a much better way to leverage your deal, increase your cash on cash return, and reduce your cash out of pocket up front. After you put in your terms, 20% down on a construction loan, you then are going to put in your rate. We use Intrust Funding in the Pacific Northwest. They've been funding our deals for almost 20 years. They're dependable. They fund us in 24 hours. So we go for ease. Part of that ease is we pay 12% interest. They charge us 12%, so we input it in the interest rate box, and then they charge us 2 points for a 12-month loan. So we're going to input our points at that time. So talk to your hard money lenders. What's your rate? What's your points? Input them in that box. After you've inputted your rate and term, then it's the junk fees. Hard money lenders have tons of junk fees, guys. That's just the way it is. With Intrust, they're actually a little bit lower, and they only charge $800 for all their fees in there. And now we've accounted for all of our upfront costs. Because remember, in these loans, we're doing 2 loans. We have a charge for the first loan and the second. We want to calculate those all. So we inputted in all charges, the 12%, the 2 points, the $800 in charges. Then we're going to talk about terms. So with Intrust Funding, our lender, they wrap the fees into the loan. That's important, guys, because as you're looking at your BRRRR property, If the fees are paid up front, that's more cash out of pocket. With them, they roll it in. That means I'm coming in with 20% of all loan fees, construction costs, and purchase price. Then we want to know what's the terms. Is it interest only? Are you paying it down? The reason that matters, again, we're trying to utilize a 75% loan to value. If you're paying down that loan, that's going to reduce your balance. You can then pull that money back out on your refi, so we want to know as far as the cash in or cash out. Most hard money lenders, guys, they're interest only, so every payment you make is not going to be credited. We want to count for those interest payments to come back on the refi. Does it include PMI? Yes, it does at that point. And then it goes into what's the term, and this is important. How many months are you going to be rehabbing this property? Every month that you rehab is going to be a monthly payment you need to make with no cash flow. That's more cash out of pocket. We want to get that cash out of pocket inside that 75% loan to value. So typically with a BRRRR property, it takes us about 4 to 5 months to buy it, renovate it, and then refinance it. So we're going to put in a 5-month term at this point because that's going to account for our whole cost during that time. Once you're done with the takedown financing, which is your construction lender, then it goes into your permanent financing, the money you're going to keep your rental with. And this is really important that you talk to your mortgage officers before you put in these terms. Rates are going all over the place right now, so you want to identify where your rate's going to be. In addition to, talk to your mortgage professionals where your rate's going to be in 5 months, not just today. If they think they could go up, you're going to want to increase a higher rate at that time. So after you talk to your loan officer, you want to go, what is my rate in terms? So we called our mortgage officer and they gave us a nasty rate of 8.75. That's not great, but that's okay. That's what we have to work with. They allow you to input your closing costs. Typically on average, it's going to cost us about 1% to do our closing costs at that point. So that's going to be about $2,800 for this property. And then we need to enter in what is our loan amount. So with a BRRRR property, I'm targeting to leave no cash in the deal. So remember, I'm paying $200,000 for this property. I'm putting $85,000 in. I got soft costs, hard costs, and whole costs, which are going to be about $15,000. So I'm going to want to get a loan for about $300,000 to get all my money back. So at that point, I'm going to put in my loan term at $300,000. Typically, we're going to pay the fees and loans out of pocket when we close with the conventional lender. The payment on this is going to be a 30-year principal and interest for this specific rate. And then again, you guys, that's important for you to talk to your mortgage professionals. If you're going to a portfolio lender or DSCR, there's different types of rates. Sometimes they're interest only, sometimes they're principal plus interest, but this is going to tell you your equity buy down. So talk to your mortgage professionals, find out the loan you want to do, then input that information in. And then it asks for the typical cap rate for the area. In this area, for a single family house, we don't really use cap rates as much. That's more for multifamily, but on average, it's going to sell for about a 7 cap in this area. How you find a cap rate, guys, you look into multifamily, you look into rental properties, you can see on the listing, it's going to say advertised cap rate, selling cap rate. What they're selling for is going to be what it's going to be for the value for your property. So after you've inputted all this core information, then it comes down to the meat and potatoes. What kind of income are we going to get on this property? During our underwriting, we calculated our monthly income. How we did that is we called our leasing broker. What do they think they can rent for? Ultimately, they're the ones leasing it. We then checked it on the MLS. What are properties with the same bed bath count in the same area with a high quality renovation renting for? So after reviewing our comparables, we knew that we were going to get $2,850 for this property for being full rented. So how we get that to our rent comparables is during our underwriting, we contacted our property manager. We use the Northwest MLS. We use rental meter, different types of metrics that give us that calculation. So we've established a $2,850 a month rent, and then it allows me to input any other monthly income. This is where you can break it down if you're charging for parking, washer, dryers, any type of amenities you're charging for, you can break it down that way. After you've inputted all your income, it then goes into the expenses that are going to eat up that income. Things like electricity, water, sewer, garbage, HOA fees, any of those things that you're paying for in your market, you want to enter those in. It's going to affect your calculations and cash flow. Now in Washington State as landlords, when we're renting a single family house, we don't pay for any of that. The tenant pays it all. So I'm not going to enter anything in at that point. The calculator then automatically enters in your property taxes monthly because you inputted those in the very beginning, and then it allows you to put any other monthly expenses in there. So after you've inputted your core expenses, then you want to enter in your variable landlord expenses. In Washington, we have about a 3% vacancy rate. We're going to enter that in there. We also add in 1% for repair and maintenance, which is just 1% of all annual income goes back into our savings account to pay for any kind of expenditures. In addition to capital expenditures, we put at 1%. Again, gives us a buffer, some rainy day money to put back into our rental properties. That's really important, you guys. As you're building out your portfolio, have that additional cash that you might need to reinvest into that deal. And then you can back out your property management fees. Are you hiring a property manager? For the first 10 years when we owned rental properties, we did everything ourselves to help us grow. Now, as we've gotten more stabilized and we have more businesses, we hire property management, which costs us about 7% a month on a small single family like this. Once you've inputted all your expenses, then it calculates your report, which the BRRRR Calculator report is awesome. It summarizes everything that you need to know to give an educated decision on the next BRRRR property. So let's dig into this. It highlights what's our monthly income, $2,800. What's our monthly expenses, $2,737 after all expenses and mortgage costs. So our monthly cash flow is $112 a month. That's good. We're able to buy this property, refinance it, and still cash flow it. So your highlights section is on this top box. It then breaks down two key components right here that are really important. One is the acquisition. When we're buying the property, we're putting a down payment and servicing the debt. This tells me I'm going to need $60,000 or $59,000 during this time period. That's going to tell me, can I afford that? If I only have 50 grand in my bank account, that's going to be a problem. I'm going to need to go raise some money, or I need to move on to the next deal. But if I have $100,000, I'm all good. Maybe I can do two of these at the same time. And the next box down here is the refinance. This is going to tell you how much cash you need to leave in the deal. Is this really a BRRRR property? You don't want to buy a major fixer, renovate the whole thing, sit on it for 5 months, go to refinance it, and still have to leave a bunch of money left in the deal. That goes against the whole point of a BRRRR. You might as well go buy a traditional rental at that point, put 20% down and get rent income immediately. So this is going to tell me, is it a true BRRRR? So the new loan amount at $300,000, which is going to be inside that 75% loan to value. The loan fees at $2,800, a rate at 8.75%. My monthly payments at $2,100, and my cash invested in the deal is at $0. So this is a BRRRR potential for us. Seller will sell for $200,000. We're gonna have roughly $100,000 in cost with the rehab, the debt cost. We can refinance it at a value of $390 to $399, get all of our cash back out, cash flow $100 a month. So the refinance period tells you whether it's a true BRRRR or not. Do you have to leave money in the deal? Are you getting your gunpowder back? In this scenario, I can get a loan for over $300,000 with the new 75% loan to value. After you've looked at your acquisition costs and how much cash you need out of pocket, we then get into the refinance category, which is really important as a BRRRR investor. Remember, we're trying to get all of our cash back out so we can repeat and do it again and scale. This is going to tell you whether you're going to have to leave money or not. You never want to be the investor that's planning on getting their money back and is trapped in the deal. That is not fun. It limits your capability as an investor. So as we can see in this scenario, the total loan balance at $300, that's the purchase price, the rehab, the soft costs. The loan fees are calculated in $2,800 at a rate of 8.75%. I was going to cash flow $150 a month, and my cash invested in the deal is $0. It's a BRRRR. So this would go on my buy list. This calculator helps you navigate whether you should keep it or not. If this told me I had to leave about $30,000 to $40,000 in the deal, I might pass on that deal. The calculator sums it all up for you and allows you clarity in decisions. So once you're done with this report, you're going to save it and it's going to go into your save reports. You then can revisit any potential BRRRR property through here and revisit the numbers. As we can see, there's a lot of properties loaded in here. They haven't sold yet, but they don't quite work. At this property, they needed $243 to sell it. It was a negative cash flow of $334. But as these sellers sit on market longer, maybe they don't sell, I can keep reaching out and give them my strike price of around $200. So it allows you to keep the deals in front of you. You can change the deals around. It's going to auto update the calculations for you and make you efficient with your time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to breaking down how to analyze your next BRRRR property. For more information on how to analyze your property, how to calculate these figures, check us out on Instagram at jdainflips or jamesdainard.com. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe below.